man.
How you doing?
Hey, how are you, sir?
Very well. Yourself?
I've been better. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having your seats clean, man.
Yeah, of course. Why, you got in really...
I had some disgustingly filthy lift seats lately, man. It's just been...
Really?
It's been a nuisance, to say the least.
Damn, man.
I literally had to go to the hospital this past Wednesday when they picked me up from school.
Mm-hmm.
The lift vehicle that came there, the seats were disgustingly filthy and it smelled toxic.
Really?
Yeah, the driver apparently was smoking methamphetamine or something.
Methamphetamine?
That's what it smelled like.
You don't think it was well...
It smelled like it was pumping through her air conditioner. So she was obviously smoking it prior, and then she had her air conditioner on full blast. So the remnants of the methamphetamine was in her air conditioning, and it was relevant. It was prevalent. It was just seeping through her air vents. And just within 1 or 2 minutes of me just standing outside with the door open, talking to her and asking her to cancel the ride so I could call another Lyft right away, my body started heating up. I started feeling dizzy. My head started hurting.
Because of the meth? I've never smelled meth before, so I don't know what
it smells like a chemical, like a very strong, just disgustingly strong chemical. But it's a very distinct smell. I mean, if you've smelt it before,
you know it's meth.
You know what it is, yeah.
Holy crap.
So it smelled like a combination of meth, mold, filth, and a bunch of just disgusting things pumping through her air conditioning.
Holy crap.
And but instantaneously, within 1 minute, I started getting sick, and I ended up having to call I had to call 911 to take me to the emergency room.
Because of that lift?
Yeah, because of that lift. But what was really sad about the entire situation is she tried to convince me that her seats weren't dirty, and they were just visibly, clearly, disgustingly filthy. And
what was so filthy about it? Was it stained? Did it have like
everything from stain to just visible dirt to just visible just filth. I mean, I don't know anybody in their right mind who would actually sit on a seat like that for 30 minutes to commute anywhere. But it was just really bad. And then she commented. She said, "Well, you're gonna be stuck here until I contact Lyft. I've had to go through this before with other riders, and Lyft had to come out and check my seats and make sure they weren't dirty, and they said they weren't dirty." And they gave me thousands of dollars to clean my seats. And I was
lying to you, bro.
Obviously,
there's no Lyft to anybody that comes to look at your car.
Right. And then I said, "Well, did you use any of that money to clean your seats?" And she was like, "Close my door."
She's a liar.
Yeah, obviously. And she had like missing teeth. She looked like she was strung out.
Yeah,
But
they're liars, man. They're only thing that
Big
unfortunately, because they're looking for their next high, is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really all they care about. And it was really bad before that specific situation this past Wednesday, but it didn't get that bad until that Wednesday. And I noticed it getting worse and worse as I was complaining to Lyft. And it was almost as if Lyft was purposely sending me the dirtiest vehicles because they knew I was going to complain and report them. And then like I was being harassed in other places in accordance with things that I was complaining to Lyft about. So it was as if I was being followed in a sense. But that's normal, you know, when somebody's conducting an investigation, especially when I'm spending like $500 to $800 a month on Lyft just to get to and from my necessary tasks and living necessity locations.
It's like a monthly car note, man. Have you thought about getting a car?
Right. To be honest with you, I'd rather just not drive, only because of how much I'm going through and how many things I'm having to accomplish, and then my injuries and all those things. So
take precautions.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much just trying to fully recover, and it's just better for me to be able to call a driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, $500 to $800 a month. I could rent a couple cars, a month, with insurance and all that. But it's just, man, it was bad, man. Like literally the other day, I had to call a Lyft, for example, to take me to get my dry cleaning done for my school clothes.
Yeah.
And when I finished, I had to call another lift. So when another lift arrived, it was a very overweight man. I felt bad for him. He was very overweight. It looked like he needed to go to the doctor, to be honest with you. He was like, he had large blemishes all over his body, from his feet to his arms to his everywhere. And it just looked like he was at risk for self-neglect. And then his seats were just as filthy. And it was a small little car, so it was impossible that I'd be able to even sit in the back seat without touching anything, let alone the fact that the seats were dirty. So my rear end would get dirty, obviously. But he tried to convince me that the seats weren't dirty, and just from standing outside his vehicle door, his driver's side door, talking to him, he was spitting when he was talking, and some of his spit landed on my face, and immediately, as soon as it landed on my face, I felt my face start burning, like right in that same spot. So he had some kind of respiratory infection or something was going on with him internally also. So that's just one thing after another, man.
Well, man, I am sorry that you've been getting really weird drivers, per se.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre.
Yeah, it's not unusual. It's it's kind of normal, especially in like a high traffic tourist area like this, where there's a lot of college kids. I mean, you don't really see too many luxury Lyfts or Ubers because
it's not a major city.
Yeah, it's not an area where you're gonna find too many college kids who are spending obviously the most money in this area, wanting to spend money on a luxury Uber. They're just more concerned about partying and things like that.
That's all they want, man, is to go out and drink.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Yeah, the only time I ever had, I'm trying to think. There was only one time I had a bad Uber experience. I went out, went drinking, whatever, just like anybody else. And I asked the guy, I was like, hey man, I'm gonna tip you an extra $10 if you just drive by the Taco Bell. And this was in Miami. This Taco Bell was never busy. Not like here where there's too many college students, right? And the guy gave me shit. The guy was cursing. He's like, no man, I'm gonna lose money. And I wasn't wasted. I was, I drank probably like 4 or 5 beers, and I was like, you know what, man? I am an Uber driver myself, and you're acting like an ass.
Right.
And this guy had like a 4.67 rating, which is really bad for a driver. Because you have to be really shitty to have a 4.67 rating. And I said, look, man, I just offered you to give you $10 tip. It's on the way. I understand. I'm a driver too. I understand you don't want to stop. It takes money. That's why I'm giving you $10 to make up for that time. And the guy just, he didn't have it, man. I was like, you know what, bro? Just take me home, man. Just take me home. But I'm not one of those that will report or anything, because at the end of the day, I got home safe, and that's all I really wanted. So he did do his job. But that was really the only time I ever had a bad experience. And as far as my car, hey man, I think you can tell who someone is or how they are by the way they dress, the way they handle themselves, the way they keep themselves clean.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely could understand from both sides. From a realistic perspective to a business perspective. You know what I mean? I'm a college student. I'm studying law, and I'm also trying to get my medical degree. So I completely understand, how specific demographic areas work and what they're influenced by, especially areas that are considered high traffic tourist areas. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, their decisions that they make in those specific demographic areas come from the type of food that they eat and the type of chemicals and the type of feed that are given to the animals before they're slaughtered and put on specific shelves in specific demographic areas, and the chemicals that are put in specific vegetables while they're grown before they're put on specific shelves. And scientists are in charge of the vegetables, doctors are in charge of the meat. A lot of the time, doctors and scientists don't get along, and a lot of people they don't know that. That's why you'll notice people who are aware of things like that, they'll get their meat from specific areas, and they'll get their vegetables from specific areas. And their investors also, they don't get along with each other because they know that the type of chemicals and feed that are put into those foods, they affect how those specific people who consume those foods in those demographic areas feel, and the type of decisions that they make in that demographic area, and that ultimately generates money for their investment, so on and so forth. So
capitalism here, right?
Yeah, it's really any high traffic tourist area like that. But so that's what I mean by I can understand, where people are coming from, when they're just trying to, provide for themselves and, provide for their children, pay their car notes, their mortgages, so on and so forth. It's understandable. But then again, you've got other people who also drive Lyft and Uber, and they've told me things like, for example, it all comes down to whether the driver wants to keep their vehicle clean or not. It's not an excuse for them to have a filthy vehicle and not expect the rider to complain about something like that. And then I've also had Uber and Lyft drivers say things like, usually when they're driving someone, they'll have Uber or Lyft already having another rider in the queue, so they won't have enough time to clean their vehicle in between riders. So I could understand that also, but it all really comes down to how much you want out of your investment. So if somebody's pursuing a career in something specific, they're obviously investing their time and their money into it. So if they want to make the most out of that specific investment instead of just wasting their time, or like you said, trying to chase that next high, it makes the world of a difference, especially for people who don't like doing drugs, don't like drinking alcohol, don't like engaging in criminal activity and things like that. So it makes a big difference when somebody's focused on doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
It does. Now there are times where I'll drive, because I drive all walks of life. There are some people that smell bad.
Right.
And there are some people that just finish smoking a cigarette and then they get in my car. Like, you see them smoking it.
Right.
And they throw it out, and as they're sitting, they're blowing it all out. So
yeah,
it gets in here.
Right. That's the worst.
Yeah. Or there's some people that they smoke weed all day, so it's on them.
Right.
So they get in my car, which I don't have a problem with weed smoking, because I smoke weed as well, but only at the end of the night when I am done, because I work from home. That's my main gig.
Right.
So I get it, right? It stays or whatever. But when they leave because I make sure my car is as clean as possible. Right? I try to be as professional as possible, because I drive older people.
Right.
I drive people that I drive vets. They go to the VA. I drive people that have health issues. So I take them appointments, all of the above.
So you do medical Lyft also?
So it's not that I signed up for medical Lyft. It's that Lyft has contracts with Medicaid, Medicare, insurance companies,
right.
Workman's comp, so they have those rides, and I just get them. So there'll be times when people smell like something and they leave that smell in my car.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And I'm like, fuck, man, now somebody else thinks this, thinks that, but sometimes I just can't help it. So I always do clean my car. I clean my car every 2 to 3 days, depending how dirty people leave it, because part of this gig is it's gonna get dirty. There's just no way around it.
Right.
Especially when it rains, or some people that live like in the back roads, and it's like dirt road and all that. So I make sure to keep it as pristine as clean as I can.
So I've got a question for you, if you don't mind me asking. If you were to reach out to Lyft and explain to them, hey, for example, I just picked up a rider, he smelled filthy, he was filthy, he dirtied my vehicle, I'm just informing you that this happened, so on and so forth, just so if the next rider complains, you're aware that the previous rider is the person who dirtied my vehicle. If you were to reach out to Lyft and tell them that, does Lyft reimburse you for maybe some cleaning fees or anything at the least?
Great question. So 2 things: when somebody dirties my car, whether it's dog hair or somebody threw up, anything, I have to turn off the app, I have to take pictures, and I have to let them know what happened. And then depending on the amount of dirtiness, whether it's vomit and the location, whatever it is, chemicals, poop, anything, determines what kind of cleaning fee I get, which can be between $20 to $200. So
20 to 200.
Correct.
Okay.
So like, for example, somebody has thrown up in my car, not this one, but another car. They throw up all up in my dashboard.
Oh man.
So I had to take pictures, explain the situation, and they reimbursed me $200. Why? 2 reasons why. I had to stop driving.
Right.
So
That's what I was gonna say.
money.
Right.
They have to go spend money to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they reimbursed for that and some, simply because, well, like, I just lost money from not out being driving. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, that's how that works. But they don't really tell Lyft, hey, watch out for this person. It doesn't work like that. It's specifically for that one ride, because it's considered a transaction.
Well, that's good. I mean, at least they